Should California make it easier for local governments to borrow money for affordable housing and public infrastructure by lowering the voter approval requirement from 2/3 to 55%? Or should it stick with the current 2/3 vote requirement? I'm Maranto, a student researcher at the Rose Institute of State and Local Government with a nonpartisan analysis of Proposition 5, which Californians will vote on this fall. Selling bonds is a way for governments to borrow money. Local governments sell general obligation bonds, financed by property taxes, for many things, including housing programs. The localities take out a loan and then use property taxes to pay it back. California law generally requires approval by 2/3 of voters for local governments to sell any type of general obligation bond. However, in 2000, Proposition 39 lowered this voting threshold to 55% for some districts like school districts to sell bonds for school infrastructure. Now, Prop 5 proposes to similarly lower the voting threshold for selling bonds to finance affordable housing and public infrastructure. Affordable housing can include permanent support housing for the formerly homeless and housing for anyone earning less than 150% of the median income in the county. Public infrastructure can include utilities, emergency preparedness projects, and public facilities like parks. Prop 5 also requires some accountability measures to ensure that the money is being spent for allowed purposes. For example, local governments would need to appoint a trained oversight committee and require administrative costs to be less than 5%. Supporters argue that Prop 5 would increase much-needed affordable housing while promoting local autonomy and independence from state funds and ensuring transparency in how the money is spent. Opponents argue that Prop 5 would increase both local debt and property taxes, thus increasing the burden on taxpayers and saddling future generations with the bill. The Legislative Analyst's Office predicts that, if Prop 5 passes, more local housing bonds would be proposed and pass, costing Californians at least a couple $2 billion over many years in higher property taxes. In sum, a yes vote for Proposition 5 would lower the voting threshold from 2/3 to 55% for local governments to fund affordable housing and public infrastructure. A no vote would keep current California law, requiring a 2/3 voting threshold for borrowing money for these purposes. So, what do you think? How will you vote on Proposition 5? Go to roseinstitute.org for more information.